I'm Chris McDonough, a retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room.
Face to face in this trashy bar. Another glass and I am going places. Makes me laugh about the
Welcome to the interview room, everybody. Time to take a seat. Thanks for being with us tonight. I don't know about you, but I'm really excited about tonight's program. As always, coming to you from an undisclosed location. At TIR, we follow the evidence wherever it takes us on a case, and all parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. All opinions are always welcome here. We only ask that you keep them safe, classy, and honest. Thank you always to our mods. You guys are the Fab Four and the best group on YouTube. No question about it. Without you, our subscribers, and our members, we can't do what we're doing. So for that, we thank you always. With all of you folks, we move mountains of justice for families and victims. And hopefully we can bring some peace and calm to a disruptive world. Tonight's show, Behind the Tape, with my sweetheart Karen. Man, did I get lucky. And I know what you guys are going to say. What does she see in you? I've asked that question for a very long time. Karen's an award-winning investigative journalist who started her career out at the LA Times and then later picked up a crime beat with a daily in San Diego County. And it was at that point she came into my life. She's a graduate with a degree in journalism and communication. And I brought her over from the dark side, I like to say, when she became a public information officer for a local law enforcement agency in Southern California. She's an amazing, accomplished author, amazing wife and mother, and I thank God every single day that she's my soulmate. Tonight, we're going to take you behind the tape and answer your questions and just have, as always in McDonough style, just a chit-chat. We want to get to know you. Just being here is enough. Please subscribe, hit that like button, and send this around. So, without further ado, my sweetheart, Miss Karen. Hi, hon. You're muted. Hang on. Take the mute.
All right. Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Well, thank you for that beautiful introduction, sweetheart. I love it. And it's great to be here with everybody tonight. Is my sound okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
Nice and loud. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, you're good. Everybody sees it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's fun getting to be on this side. I miss being in chat, but hey, I'm happy to be here for a fun chit chat tonight.
Well, and everybody, it's taken me a long time to get her to come to this side of the camera. She's always in the background. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable in the background, but, this is fun too. This is very fun. I love the opportunity to get to, you know, thank our mods, our incredible what an incredible team of women. We are so grateful we have them. And just thank our TIR family. We love you guys. You have been there. You're our support. Of course, couldn't do any of this without you. And just to come say thank you, thank you. We're very grateful for all of you. I mean, hey, Thanksgiving's next week. No better time to show our gratitude. And of course, to thank our subscribers and just everybody in the family members, our Patreon members. We're grateful for you, and it's fun. And you guys are so sweet. I'm seeing some of your comments, so you take good care of me here. So it's fun. Thank you.
Okay, so a little bit of the ground rules, and what I want to first mention quick, get the wrong impression in relationship to what's going on here. As you know, I'm a member of the Cold Case Foundation, have been for many, 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 many years. And we get embedded in law enforcement activities all around the country. And I will let you know, I have been embedded with the Fruitland Police Department for the last 2 months on the Michael Vaughn case. I cannot discuss it, and you would not expect me to, evident of the fact that, it's an ongoing investigation still. But I want to tell you, I am so impressed with that agency, and it has been an absolute honor to have been alongside them for the last couple of months. Somebody caught me, and it kind of outed me. I usually do a pretty good job, as you can tell. You did not know that I have been there for as long as I have been. But that said, we want you guys to know that without you guys, we could not travel the country and do some of the things that we're doing. So, God bless you all, but I hope you understand I'm not going to be able to discuss any of that. That said, I do want to talk to my sweetheart and have you guys get to know her a little bit more in relationship to her career. And I want to start, with the idea, and I don't know if it's your internet or mine, honey, but okay, you're back. I think it would be really cool if you shared the idea. Oh, here's Rich. I love Rich. He's a good friend of mine.
Hey, Rich. Hi, Rich.
Rich Neiman.
Good to see you tonight.
Mac Daddy, that's what they call me. Exactly. Mac Daddy. Now that that's out in the
add that to the list.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait. Okay. Buddy is right behind me, as you can see. Go ahead, honey.
And I have to say, Buddy on cue took his place tonight and is sleeping at least for a little bit. Most of the time, Buddy just does his own thing, as you all know, all the dog owners know, especially if you've ever had a JRT. And most of the time, Buddy's sleeping at Chris's feet.
Tell him about his girlfriend.
Well, yes, there is a adorable little female Jack Russell. Her name is Sassy, where we're at. And she is like a few years younger than Buddy and a couple pounds lighter than Buddy. So they're just a really cute couple when they get together at the dog park. And we love her too. She's so sweet. They're very sweet.
Dog too.
They're very sweet. We'll have to post a picture of them together. We'll put that over on Patreon. Not every, people may or may not want to see that, but we think it's super cute.
And we have a birthday on Jennifer. Happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Jennifer. Thank you for spending your birthday evening here for a little bit with us. We are grateful. We're honored.
So kind of like the dog version of Chris. Yes, exactly. Buddy is exactly right. Good, Josh.
Thanks,
Love
Josh.
A good friend there. Let's see here. So let's share the story. Well, you tell me where you want to go, because we talked earlier tonight and earlier
Mhm.
today, of course, about, you know, things. What do you want to cover, hon? Because you've had some fascinating stuff.
I'm very lucky. I had a very super fun, exciting, career as a crime reporter, and I did all that for many, many years before I became a public information officer for a police department. So I got to be on the other side of,
Thank you.
the media. Thank you, Lo, too. Appreciate that. Um, I don't know, one of the things that we'll do tonight is some of the behind the scenes, um, travel that we've done in covered cases that you are all familiar with. So we can touch on that later, and we've got some pictures, and we can kind of chit chat about that. But yeah, I mean, I was a crime reporter for many, many years in San Diego County, and there was just a lot of crime. There was a lot of stuff going on at that time, probably all the time. The bigger city that you're in, of course, the bigger the population, the more crime things are going to happen. So I don't know what would be interesting
Let's
for
start out with
people.
the
What do you
alligators in
think?
San Diego. Alligators in
Okay,
San Diego. I think that's a good
that
one.
was a that was a fun one. So um, and so I have to give a little quick backstory. Um, 20 years prior, a man went on a business trip, as the story goes, and brought back home a small little alligator. And he hid in his backyard and dug up some kind of a pit, put water in it. So it was this kind of swampy thing that he created. And as the years went on, he would feed it. Well, he probably fed it from the beginning. Um, Not live chickens, but raw chicken. So over the course of many years, his neighborhood, things started to grow bigger. And there
Here,
were rumors in the neighborhood.
hang on for a minute. Hang on. You're having technical issues. Can you?
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, that's all right. Can you try to connect to the jetpack? Let's see if that works.
Oh, hang on for a second.
Okay. Well, while she's doing that, thank you everybody for letting us know that that was happening. 'Cause I think she was cutting out. Okay. Now you're gonna have to refresh, come back in, and I'll set you back in. All right, we're gonna lose her just for a second.
Am I
Oh,
back?
you're back.
Can
Yay,
you
and
hear
look
me?
oh, yeah, you
Okay.
look great. Okay, go ahead. Finish your story you
Okay.
were at.
Okay. So in this neighborhood, there were rumors that people had seen by now a large alligator. And this is a residential neighborhood. This isn't rural. This is like everybody's crammed together. So one night, the sheriff's department got a phone call, and somebody said, "Hey, there's a 400-pound alligator in the backyard." And this is in an area called Solana Beach. If you follow the Maya Mileti case, you've heard of Solana Beach. Really nice seaside coastal community. And the dispatcher, you could tell, didn't really believe the phone call. And thank you, Annabelle, for becoming a member. So, two sheriff's deputies show up at this house. They go in the backyard, and it's this really nice house, and there's this pool, and they see this ginormous alligator thrashing around. It had smashed some French doors. It flipped over the furniture, outdoor furniture back there. And so the sheriff's deputies were like, "Oh, wow, I guess this really was a legit call." They stepped back. They had to get Fish and Game involved, and they somehow got this alligator under control, duct taped its mouth shut, and we all thought, because we reported on it. This is a news story. We thought, "Oh wow, well they're gonna have to take that alligator and get rid of him," but they actually flew him to Florida. Some alligator, you know, rehab, or not alligators go. So uh, this thing caused like thousands of dollars of damage because it got out. It was next door and it wandered out next door to where it had been staying for 20 some years in the neighborhood. So the rumors were true that there really was an alligator back there.
Yeah, so
So there you go.
Sherilyn says, I think you have to jump on its back. They were all scared of him, right? I mean, all the deputies
Oh
were
yeah.
they were afraid of him.
Well,
Thing was
it's
huge.
not like sheriff's deputies are trained to wrestle alligators. I don't think
Right,
they do that. That's,
right,
right? I mean, they can
right.
there has to do a lot, but that's not one of
Oh,
the
look at
things.
Kimberly, hon. Congratulations.
Oh,
How exciting.
congratulations.
Pretty exciting for sure. And
That's awesome.
alligators are scary. Well, LB, we agree with you 100%. Okay, so now
Yes.
let's get
Yeah.
into some meat and potatoes about crime stuff, real crime
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah.
With this latest situation that I'm gonna talk about tomorrow night at the University of Idaho here. And by the way, everybody, if you be with us tomorrow night, where I'm gonna weigh in on that. And but the Karen and I were familiar, and Karen actually covered it in San Diego. It was a caper back a while ago, and it was 5 victims. And go ahead,
Yeah,
hon.
and, when news first broke, it's been almost a week, obviously, of these 4 students who were just so tragically killed, University of Idaho, and, the details start coming out. It really brought me back to, a horrendous case I covered in the late '90s, and it was the Joshua Jenkins case. Well, that was the suspect. And this was a 15 you guys can look it up. He was 15 and very angry, very disturbed teenager. The background that we got later after we dug into the story after this tragedy occurred was that he was adopted and he had fetal alcohol syndrome and probably a lot more than that. So a wonderful family. This is in Las Vegas. Or excuse me, LA, and then they moved to Vegas. They adopted him. They raised him, and um, so the story goes that he had such violent outbursts that this family didn't know what to do. They put him in a special school in LA. And one weekend, they took him out of the school on a break, and it was his parents, and he had a 10-year-old sister who was also adopted. Well, they drove to San Diego County to visit the grandparents, and they, stayed in the grandparents' condo, and the tragedy thank you, MEA. Very kind, very sweet of you. So one night, this 15-year-old, he, killed his parents. He killed his father, his mother, and the 2 grandparents. Somehow, the 10-year-old was spared, and the next day, he went out with the 10-year-old, purchased an axe, came home, came
He took his
back,
sister
and
with him,
yes, he did. I
his
mean,
little sister.
this is a horrible story. And
Yeah.
so, he killed all 5 of them in the house, put them in a bedroom, and then set the condo on fire. Well, he got in the parents' car and he left, and, like, literally half a day later, the sheriff's deputies got him, they arrested him. So horrible, and he was tried, I believe he was tried as an adult. So back in 1995 in California, the age that you could be tried as an adult, they lowered it. It was 16. Do you remember this, Chris? They
Yeah,
lowered it to 14 if the level of crime rose and met the requirements.
right.
And so, actually, he was ready to stand trial. He found out that he was gonna be tried as an adult, and then he pled guilty. So he is doing 112 years to life in the California penitentiary system. Thank
Well, tell him
goodness.
how you connected the story about him going to Home Depot.
Oh, yeah. Um, so I figured out that And this is like right when it happened. They had, you know, all of these bodies, and they were trying to sort through what happened while it took, half a day to find him because he drove off. And I was able to we went to a Home Depot, and I found the guy who sold the axe to the 15-year-old, and he remembered that the 15-year-old came in with the 10-year-old sister, like, a couple of days before. Needless to say, this
Okay,
isn't one of the
so
victims.
let's
Yeah,
stop for a moment there, because I don't think
yeah.
people know our total story. But I mean, and we don't have to go into it tonight, but because we'll do that on another time. But this is why I didn't. How long did I not talk to you before we ever really met?
Well over a year. So we'll just give them a little pieces because may have heard this, some may have not. So I was a crime reporter. Chris had all the big cases, and I wanted to find out more about all the big cases he had just to do my job. I would call, leave messages for him. Hey, Detective McDonough, give me a call back. Blah blah blah. Never called me back
Delete,
ever. Like,
delete,
he didn't call me back for over a year, and so I had no further choice. He left me with no other choice.
delete,
So I had
and that's the reason why. You just heard what she said. She, her editor, who by the way is a very famous um, special operations group hero, war hero. His name is John Streikemeyer. You can look him up. He goes by the name of Tilt. And he's written all kinds of books about special operations groups. Well, that was her boss. And he would be like, get out there and, go do this, go do that. Well, I would read this stuff on the front page of the newspaper and I'd be like, who is this? What is it? What is she doing? And so she started calling me, and I just deleted every single one of her messages because I didn't trust her at the time.
well, so the only recourse I had, ladies, was to do what? I told on him.
She got me in
So
trouble.
I got him in trouble. Well, I wasn't trying to get him in trouble. I was
Thank you,
trying
Pastor, you're right.
to have him I was trying to get him to call me back. So I went to his, lieutenant, and I said, "Hey, can you please have Detective McDonough call me back? I've got a job to do.
Who
I need
told
to
the
get this
captain?
information." Well, yeah, you gotta tell that side of the story because I wasn't there. I don't know what they said to you.
Yeah, they said a lot. Anyway, here the bottom line, and we'll keep going into the story. But my boss walks over to my desk and he says, "Hey, do you know the name of this reporter?" And I said, "Yeah, she's a problem." And he goes, "Well, yeah, now she's my problem. Have you called her back? Because she said she's leaving all these messages." I said, "No, I'm not talking to her." And he ordered me to call her. I mean, it was an order. And so that's how we met. And we've been,
And when he did call me back, I thought, "Okay, this he's gonna be a real problem. He's gonna be a real jerk for sure."
was I?
However,
Was I?
no, he was the exact opposite. He was
Yeah.
nice, he was kind, and then when I got to know him a little bit more, funny, I mean, like, hysterically funny, and just a lot of other interests, and, a really, really good guy. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it all worked out.
And I took her to Hawaii in 2000 and I married her in Hawaii, just Maui'd for a Maui girl, one of our mods.
Yeah,
We got
Maui girl, we got married on Maui.
in
Yep.
Kapalua, right on the beach. And
Yeah.
our ceremony at the time was in Hawaiian. We didn't even know what the guy said. It was all in Hawaiian.
To this
It was
day, we
amazing.
have no idea what he said.
We hope he said I do at that point. I'm teasing. All right, so finish your Josh Jenkins story. You got you figured out where he bought it. And how
Right.
from a journalistic side, what was that? What did that feel like?
So it's a game of Clue, really, and when I say a game, you know, it hasn't changed today, right? So the crime happens, and you get a little bit of information from the law enforcement agency, right? Whatever you can get. Of course, today with social media, there's so much more volume of what's out there. So, but you still, as a reporter, you got to get on the ground. You got to go out and talk to people. You got to talk to the neighbors, family. You have to get creative, really. Use your imagination and figure out what can I do. Of course, that's legal, is legal and ethical, and that I can do my job. And, all these big crimes, they were all front page stories. So, most of my stories were always hit the front page. And, people wanted to know, and, for all the reasons that people are still interested in crime. Yeah, they were on the front page. So, it was always I was always trying to figure out where's the best source to get the information? How can I do it? And how can I do it and beat my competition? Because I was at the second largest daily newspaper, and the largest daily newspaper had a team of reporters, whereas the paper I worked for, there was like one or two of us. And so, I was always kind of in this underdog position trying to gather enough, get the story, and present it to everybody and have it on the front page. And, you know, before moving on to the next one.
So Yo Man Girl has a
Uh,
question. On
okay, do you recommend talking to or not talking to certain people during an open investigation? Well, yeah, I mean, it depends, right? So if you're a reporter, you are going to want to talk to as many people as possible. I have to say, very rarely do reporters stumble upon information that is detrimental or could blow an investigation. It really doesn't happen. Well, I should say it didn't happen in this at the time when I worked. We got close, and then, the opposite side of that is if I did, and there were times where I sources gave me information, and if I felt like, "Ooh, maybe this would tip off the suspect, if the killer was still on the loose," I needed a good relationship with people at the police department to call them up and say, "Hey, I have this. Before I run with it, could this impede your investigation? Because I don't wanna do that, but we do have the First Amendment, and people have a right to know. And, so there is that very fine line. And I felt like I had a really good relationship with people at all of the law enforcement agencies that I covered as a reporter, because you want to have that relationship. But by and large, most of the story, things that we wrote about, it didn't jeopardize the investigation. A lot of it is color and detail and things that you're only going to get if you go out and talk to people, that is never going to come across on a police department press release, and can give more of insight and background so people, have a better idea of what's going on.
So Yo Man Girl says a lot of that going on. YouTube people have opinions, so I'm confused. A lot of back and forth. What you're
Well, main girl, that is a really good point. So I back in the day, from a long time ago, when I went to journalism school and started my career, we were not allowed to have opinions. As a journalist, you had to remain fair and impartial, and not, that's why is the op-ed page, the opinion page. And if you're a beat reporter, you don't put your opinion in. Today, it is so different. Sadly, it is very, very different. Um, and, but old school journalism, we didn't. We put he said, she said, we put the facts out there, my opinion would be irrelevant because I'm just the person gathering the information for the story. Your opinion, the reader, is what matters most.
Yeah, and Donna says it is very difficult now with social media, right?
It is very different in that you now have, um, people, anybody who, and we all see this, um, they're not trained as a reporter. Um, Maybe, they're not the most diplomatic people either out there gathering information. And putting out wrong information, misinformation is really bad too for these cases. If your information isn't confirmed, corroborated, or comes from a legitimate source, then what are people doing? They're putting out non-factual stuff that people are believing or they're not gonna believe. And so it 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 doesn't do a lot of good. It doesn't help the reputation of social media, and I don't think people who are putting out stuff just to put it out, their own opinion, it's not substantiated, it's not corroborated. I mean, they don't care. And so the audience, you guys are the ones that need to be savvy and figure out who's giving me just their opinion or conjecture and where can I go that's really going to have more of the facts.
Yeah, Kristen looks like a colleague here. I have a journalism degree too, and have to agree with what Karen's talking about right now. My degree is from some time ago, and so I guess things are different now. And talk a little
Yeah.
bit about a little deeper into that, honey, about what you've even talked to me. I mean, we've lasted for quite some time in terms of been able to stay behind the scenes, but just last week was a perfect example of getting burned. And it's like, oh no, now the attention gets off of what it should be on and not the clarity of focus, right? Or I don't know. Do you know where I'm going with that? Probably
Well,
not.
I mean, social media is not journalism for the most part, unless you've got journalists who are on social media using that as their way to communicate. And, citizen sleuth is what we've had for many years now. This has been transitioning for quite a while. And of course, in the true crime community, you can see very clearly who's trying to gather the facts, who's sticking to the facts, and who is, just kind of off doing their stuff, and that it's not necessarily corroborated. You know, I think we have to say that there, where we are right now, we've made room for all of it. I mean, social media is here to stay. People are going to go off and try to, gather facts. And that's not to say, I mean, you don't need a journalism degree to go out and gather facts. But if you want to establish credibility and have a track record and actually have law enforcement agencies, because that's primarily who you're going to be dealing with, um, trust you, you have to have a proven track record. You have to show that you're not, some nut job out there who's just doing it for, the flash and for all not the right reasons. Um, and a lot of journalists, I think for me, the part that is shocking to me is it's mainstream journalism and their opinion is in everything. Everything. I mean, now, is it they think it's more spicy, more interesting than old school journalism? Because every single one of my old articles, there was never opinion in it unless I was writing an op-ed piece. And that's the way I think it needs to be. So, of course, I mean, we don't really wanna, thank you, Alan. I don't wanna get into, like, a First Amendment, debate or anything like that. This isn't the forum for that. Um, I'm grateful that we do live in a country with the First Amendment, and I'm grateful that we can freely exercise it to a large extent, as, And it's interesting because I don't know in nowadays for journalism school, I'm sure that the curriculum's changed. I'm sure they're not saying don't become the story. Part of my training was do not become the story. That is what you never wanted to do. I remember as a journalism student, they told you you can go out and cover a protest, but don't participate in it. Not that we can't exercise our First Amendment rights, but don't become the story. And, that is totally upside down now. I mean, it's just the opposite of what we're seeing now. So, does that kind of answer it a little bit?
I think it answered. Some YouTube
Wait,
Chris has her, uh, let's see here. Yeah, donations
I'm
paid.
I'm reading Jordan's comment. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. Well, right. So, okay. So it's basically what I've already said. If you're not trained in gathering the information, yeah, SEMA, I know, don't become the story. Exactly. Um, also another thing about being a reporter is that you're from an agency that has credibility, hopefully. If you're going out there and doing this all by yourself, and not being factually, um, not putting it all out there. It's not like when you call somebody, you say, "Hi, I'm so and so. I'm a YouTube creator. I want to talk to you for a piece I'm doing." They People can make it look like they're from a legitimate news organization when they're not. And, coming from a news organization, you want that support. You know, every newspaper I ever worked for had a wall of attorneys, and sometimes we had to go toe to toe with government agencies to release information that was clearly in the public's best interest. Um, so
Yep. And,
wait, I want to see what Sandy says. Gathering facts is a form of honesty.
yes,
Yeah. Yes.
absolutely.
Exactly. 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 And
And Classy
wild
says,
speculation. What's
go
Classy
ahead.
say? My law enforcement and the media. Classy, yes, it did happen. Wasn't always smooth. There was more of it. Not that media has to be a mouthpiece for law enforcement. Media, we were the first ones to criticize when it was due, but there was more of that cooperation. And the reason is law enforcement, the agencies run by smarter folks recognize that the media, back before social media entered into this, was their best way to get to the public that they serve and work for. And that is why that's why the cooperation was important. And I can't say that that's the case today. Jayla, what is your favorite part of your job as a reporter? You know what? I love telling people stories. I've always loved listening to
And
people's
go to her
stories
blog
and
on the website.
sharing that.
What's your blog, hon? Theinterviewroom.net, and the blog
Yes.
is there.
Yes. That's our
You
website.
can get
Yes.
you'll
Yeah.
be able to see why this gal was, amazing. As well as, look, I'm married so far up I can't see straight. So go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted.
You're so sweet. No, you're good.
Sorry.
So, yeah,
You love to
it's
tell
an interesting topic. It's an interesting topic. But yeah, I love to share people's stories because everybody has a story. Um, oh, thank you, Glitter. Thank you. That's very sweet of you.
look at this. Class has
Yeah.
already shared your blog. And by the
Oh,
way,
thanks,
years ago,
Classy.
tell everybody about, Karen also ran a news service, but but she also wrote a book, and it was
Yeah.
about a famous ballerina, and you got to
Yes.
interview a famous dancer. What was his name again? I've seen more tutus in my time than I ever cared. But what was what? Parishioner?
we should explain that. We should explain what you mean by that. So,
Okay.
um, I have been so fortunate to be able to cover and write about a myriad of subjects, not just crime. And for many, many years, I covered the arts and dance, and I got to meet and interview Mikhail Baryshnikov, the famous Russian ballet dancer who defected many, many, many years ago. So everybody knows who, hopefully everybody's heard of Mikhail Baryshnikov. So when I covered the arts and dance, and this is when Dylan was pretty little, I would get tickets to the annual Nutcracker. I love the Nutcracker, on the stage, the ballet. In fact, I'm very curious if you too share my love of the Nutcracker. Put a
Put it in
1
the
in
chat.
chat.
No,
Put
put
a
it
1 in chat.
in the comments below later on, you know? And every year, come on, we're going.
The
God,
music, the
more people.
costumes, the story.
Oh my
Who doesn't
god.
love the Nutcracker? Nutcracker Suite. So every year,
Just a
Chris
kid.
would
We
get to
love you,
come
buddy.
with me to the ballet. So that's that. I
A
love it.
lot of ballet.
So
Yeah.
over the years, he has
And
seen
but
a lot of
in
oh, somebody doesn't love it. Okay. Go ahead.
Mikhail or whatever his name was, Baryshnikov, he was short, wasn't he? Shorter than you almost.
Yes. Oh,
That's one of the things you said.
Mikhail Baryshnikov is a petite man. You just always, on the stage, people look larger than life. He's probably about 5'4". And of course, in his older years, he's very slim. I think maybe the muscles,
Thank you.
have
Go
shrunken a
ahead.
little bit. I don't want to say that, but oh, good, Jackie, you took your granddaughters. Yeah, the Nutcracker. It's wonderful. I love it. Michelle, you're very kind. You're very sweet. So,
So here's a
um,
question for you. When you worked as a
yes,
PIO, what was the most personally challenging case to work on, hon?
we had an officer involved shooting that was a very heartbreaking case. He was a young, good-looking police officer with a beautiful wife and a little 6-month-old baby. And he was killed in the line of duty by a three-time deported felon who got back into the US, got back into San Diego County. It was a tragedy. Total tragic story.
Tony
Um,
Zappatella was his name, everybody.
Tony Zappatella, very heartbreaking. And that that was the most, I knew him because obviously as a PIO, and then of course the media interest and um, you know this was national, it was international, um, and then of course the funeral arrangements and the funeral for him that probably a couple thousand people came out to. Um, it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. And our heart goes out to all of the families in this country who have lost um, a
Loved
law
one.
enforcement officer, a loved one, and
Or
it's
even
just
firefighter or paramedic.
tragic.
We love you all.
Of course, we love you all. Um, and we all know what the stats are. We all know what's going on in the country, and it's a terrible, terrible trend that's happening. But that one really was. Um, let me see what Miss Kitty says. Yeah, no, I'm sorry for your loss. So yeah, that was the tough one. But as a PIO, I love that job because the reason I loved it is because I knew what the media was coming in for. I knew the job that they had to do. I knew the storyline that they were looking at, and I could prep the chief or I would give stand-ups. We did live at fives every night. I kept a blazer hanging on the back of my office door because you never knew when, TV crew was in the front lobby. They needed a statement. They were coming up for a case, and he had to be ready and look professional, of course. Love that job, and I really felt that what I was able to do, the public was able to get information. There wasn't we never had stories back then that the police weren't releasing information. We didn't have stories where there's this horrible crime that was committed and the media couldn't get any information. There's always something a law enforcement agency can release to the public that will not jeopardize the investigation. It's all about what you are saying. It's true. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. You can give information. Miss Sophia.
You're right, Miss Sophia. I've been telling her this forever.
He better be careful. He might be losing a job here. No,
I
I'm
hope so.
kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No.
Anyway, so where was I going with this one? Yeah. Oh, so there's none of this, we can't get any information out of the police department. No. That's rule number 1. That's not there's always something that you can share, that you can talk about to let the public know. And I'm just passionate about that. It's why I got into journalism. Think about it. I mean, the public has a right to know. People have a right to know. What does that mean? That means let's provide the public with information so you can decide. You decide. It helps you make better choices as parents, as, workers, as neighbors, as whatever. You hear a crime goes on and you want the facts and you want to know how you need to respond in your life. So that's one of the things that, and I try to share that now in the work I do with Cold Case Foundation as a former PIO. I'm able to help in cases too. So it's something I'm passionate about. Thank you, Jeannie. Very kind.
Okay, so I'm going to keep moving here. This is Miley. My husband, son, and I performed 8 times for a ballet in Nutcracker.
That's
8
awesome.
times. Wow.
Awesome, Miley. It's so fun. It's so fun.
Don't you love her? I mean, it's like she'll be coming
the
out.
Rockettes. Wow.
Wow.
With the Rockettes Christmas.
That's
Those are
serious
neat
right there.
performances. Yeah, if you can get those tickets, those are fun. So fun.
Let's see here. I've got a lot more here. Now everything is double checked. Yeah, here you go. Lee here. Now everything Ellie says is checked and double checked and misinterpreted by some people, so many people, right? And here's a good one from Classy. But answer the first one, hon. What do you, or your opinion? What's your opinion?
I don't think that there's too many chefs in the kitchen. I think, law enforcement agencies or government agencies, they work for us, and they, people have, I go back to it, people have a right to know. There's a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. And, that's part of the difference.
So Classy wants to know, what advice can I give my loved one studying journalism?
The best advice I could give to anybody studying journalism is write. WRITE, not RIGHT. To write. What do I mean by that? Have them get into internships as young as even high school, for sure college. If you're interested in a journalism career, or your loved ones are, writing is the tough part. You can teach somebody, you can train them, you can show them how it's done. I'd say if you have a natural curiosity, that's huge. If you don't take no for an answer, even better, add that to the list. But the craft of writing it's lifelong. And the sooner you can start working on it, polishing it and honing it, you will be successful. Okay, Ruth, let me see. Your brother-in-law was a ballet dancer. Wow. 6 feet, and the girls loved him because they knew they could jump in his arms with no fear. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, we don't talk that much about ballet as a culture here. They do in Europe and Russia and some other places, but um citizen journalists seem to be the ones digging into stories, investigate where news just puts a nerve. That is a great point, Dawn. Um, that is a really, really good point, and I think you're absolutely right. That's one of the reasons I didn't go into broadcast news. I wanted print because print, you can actually tell the story. You have to. In broadcast news, it's a brushstroke, right? Um, and they don't have time, and they're off to the next tragedy or car crash or whatever they're covering that day.
What was the saying you guys used to say? If it bleeds, it leads.
If it bleeds, well, that's not my saying. It's the
Yeah,
industry. Yeah, if it
the
bleeds,
industry.
it leads. Meaning, right? I mean,
Mhm.
that can, yeah, if it's not just a gory thing they're talking about, but maybe it's something that people need to know about, right? I mean, a car crash, that's legitimate. People need to know, to avoid it. So under your scars, I did figure skating in my youth, but ballet, mom always called a bull in a china shop. Well, your ice skating training really would have been a good foundation for dance too. So, I did ice skating too as a kid. I loved it. Leanne, the country's papers do things a little differently, like the police blotter and church. So, right. Yes, that's true. There is a place for, of course, um, communities, small rural communities especially, they rely on their local paper. Now, most of them are online too, but you're right. For what's going on, the police blotter, what's going on in their communities, who's doing what, who's who in the zoo, for sure.
So
Wendy, yeah,
let's talk about let's tell everybody about Heaven's Gate because you covered that too when you were in San Diego. Everybody remember the nut jobs in Rancho Santa Fe in San Diego County where they were waiting for the comet to come?
yeah. I'll just touch real briefly on that. So this was a cult that was in Rancho Santa Fe, California. It was led by Marshall Applewhite, and it was called the Heaven's Gate. Look it up. You can see. And it, it was so crazy and nutty and so tragic. So there were 39 people in this home in Rancho Santa Fe that were following Marshall Applewhite, and he had a female companion also. And they were just, I mean, what do you say about cult leaders? Like legitimate cult leaders, right? And I was working that evening and I would, let me set the stage real quick. In the newsroom, it's just like how it's pictured in, TV or movies. Big, large newsroom, all open desks, and we used to listen to the police scanner when it was actually like a radio box. Now a police scanner is all digital. They do it on computers, but it's this squawk box. And I was working that night and we listened. This is reporters had to listen to the radio, and the sheriff's department got a call of can't remember what the call was, but I was listening as the responding sheriff's deputies went to the home. And I think it came as first as like a welfare check and what they found. So let's cut to the chase here. 39 people had drank the poison and they all were wearing the same clothes. They had these like track suits,
Purple pajamas and
purple
tracksuits.
pajamas. They all had brand new Nike gym shoes, like the same model. that became a whole weird subculture thing too. Look it up. It's on Google.
And
And
go ahead,
go
please.
ahead.
No, and
Oh, so
one of the funny
yeah.
things that we don't share a lot, but in terms of, but we'll tell you guys. So I was in the ME's office at the time on an autopsy in the back, and they were doing a murder that I was working. And the ME, Dr. Blackburn at the time, walks in and he's talking to his staff like, hey, we got to clear all these tables. You know, how much longer do you guys have? Because they have a whole bunch of people coming in and they're all wearing pajamas. And I was like, oh man, that means that, you know, they're going to pick it up here. And sure enough, they did. So Karen's in one door and I'm out the other door at that time. But anyway, finish your story. I'm
Well,
sorry for interrupting.
no, it's okay. It's okay. So what happened was, so 39 people, so they take them all, as Chris was saying, 39 bodies at the medical examiner's office. They had to rent these giant refrigerated trucks to be able to house the bodies. And the story, as a reporter, was at the ME's office because all of these poor families who had not heard a word from their family member for years, and didn't even look the same. There was in this call, they starved them. People were like emaciated. They hadn't they didn't eat. They weren't allowed to talk to family members for years and years. And so these poor family members had to show up and identify and claim the body of their loved one. So that's why everybody was at the medical examiner's office. Well, as luck would have it, this was a absolutely crazy story going on in San Diego County. Apparently, at the same time, in Los Angeles, an hour and a half north, was the Oscars going on. So you had media from Japan, from Germany, from around the world. They were up there for the Oscars, covering the Oscars. And so they came down to cover the Heaven's Gate cult, you know, suicides that were going on. So we had like, 100, it felt like 100 satellite trucks and just all this international media down there covering this. Now, if it didn't coincide with the Oscars, would they have been there? Well, they couldn't have gotten there that fast. And don't forget, this is like the late 90s. And so, they would have had to get on an airplane and come over and fly pretty much.
Yeah,
So
and Rick Scully was the case agent. And he owns a pub in Hawaii. Are they on Kauai and Maui? It's an Irish pub.
I don't know.
I'll have
That
to
I'm
look
not
in.
sure. You gotta look
But
them up.
anyway, it's Lynn and Rick Scully. If you're in Hawaii, go in and say, hey, the McDonough sent you. But anyway, go ahead, finish that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. And there was at one point where we were trying to get information from the medical examiner himself. And there was a throng of reporters outside. Literally, we were all standing outside the doors. The medical examiner came to the front door, obviously saw everybody out there, opened the doors. He pulled me inside. He pulled a reporter from the San Diego Union Tribune inside, and then he closed the doors. And so they all had to stay outside. Myself and my colleague, we got a sit down interview with him, and I got my front page story that day.
Okay, they're on the Big Island. I'm going to put it in here. Sorry. I just looked it up real fast. Maui, they're on the Big Island. Here it is. He was the case agent on that Heaven's Gate. He was the lead investigator. His name is Rick, and his wife's name is Lynn, and she worked.
And here's a little factoid with that. So the home, it was a mansion in Rancho Santa Fe, extremely wealthy neighborhood of San Diego County. Since this, in the 25 years since, the house has been demolished, and even the name of the street was changed to make it difficult for people to go back and find it, which is probably a good thing. Those neighbors probably don't want that.
Yeah,
So.
and everybody was surprised that you got Did you tell him how you got pulled into it?
Well, I
And
told him I got pulled into it. I didn't tell him how. So when the medical examiner came to the front door, he remembered me. As luck would have it, 2 weeks prior, I had done just a big feature story on him. Came down and I sat with him for a couple of hours, and he told me what it's like to be a medical examiner, and we talked about cases, and I did a nice feature story on him. And this kind of goes back to that other question we had earlier about the relationship between law enforcement and the media. Well, I was really interested, like, how does someone become a medical examiner? So, a medical examiner is a forensic pathologist. That means they went to medical school and have an MD, a medical degree, and then they specialized in as a pathologist, forensic pathologist. A coroner, a coroner by contrast, is not a medical examiner.
which
Sometimes
is
a
going
coroner
on right
is
now
elect
in
is
Idaho at the 4
right. In
situation.
Moscow, Idaho, right. A coroner is typically an elected official, maybe much like a sheriff. But a coroner does not have a medical degree. So there's a difference.
That is a really important thing to understand because the news over here in Idaho is complaining that there's pieces of information going in different directions, and that can become very dangerous. Would you agree with that, honey?
I would, and I have to say, I'm just gonna throw a comment out here. Um, right when the news broke of University of Idaho and the killings, when the mayor got on, well, the mayor released a press release, but when the mayor got on, I thought, "Oh boy." So, I'll go back to my PIO training. We never wanna see, and this is, like, universal, this is for media, this is for social media, this is for everybody. We don't want politicians, elected officials weighing in on a crime, let alone a horrendous crime, let alone something as complex as a quadruple homicide. Now, I know the mayor has his own agenda. This happened in the mayor's city on his watch. Of course, he's going to have something to say. But I never wanted to, as a PIO, get called out to a scene and have our mayor there or a city council person. You don't want to mix it for two reasons. Number one, you want law enforcement who's doing the investigation to keep it all to themselves. If a mayor, think about this, guys and girls, if a mayor is getting information, updates on the case, well, he's just like us. So, what is he going to be, a witness at the trial? No, we don't want that. And not only that, keep the elected politicians, let them go do their thing, let the police and investigators do their thing. So, if you recall, what the mayor said had to be walked back because he gave some information. I'm not going to repeat it because I'm not going to, I don't want to promulgate that, but it always happens typically, and we never want mayors showing up at crime scenes. The police have a hard enough job, especially when police agencies or police are inexperienced and they're overwhelmed. They have to work through this. They have to bring in other agencies. We don't want the politicians showing up. So, is that where
Yeah.
you were going with that?
Yeah, no, it's perfect because, you know, you you nailed it right on the, using the hammer, boom. Because you don't because misinformation, I mean, the flow of information
Yes.
is critical, especially in a high profile where there are 4, victims and there's families. I mean, think about that. There are 10 parents, all over the place, right? I mean, you got 4, and then you've got, other people, the 2 in there, so that's 12. You've got all these parents and the 2 that survived. And we're gonna talk about
Yeah.
that in depth tomorrow, guys and
Yeah.
gals, so, come on to I'm gonna do my Sunday, uh, regular show, tomorrow, so, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts there. We stick, you know, right by what the cops are saying right now, and just, that's a good flow. So, but you do not want the politicians involved in it at all, if you can. So,
Did
um,
you ever have a case, Chris, where you had politicians showing up from your city?
well, yeah, I mean, they would always show up, but, we had you and Tom Bussey and others that, Tom would step in, or you would step in and say, come on over here. And we didn't have to deal with it. And, being on the ground, as a case agent, the last thing you want is information to start flowing into the public arena that's not accurate, or information that you're what we call holdback. And I mean, you and I can talk about it now, Karen. I mean, remember when we were during the Brandon Wilson thing, I had some specific information about the wound patterns on the victims. And we held that back until we got a phone call, and it was LAPD West Hollywood. And, the investigator was on the phone, and he says, "Hey, I think we got your guy up here." And I said, "Well, here's the wound pattern, go back in and ask him." And if it wasn't, 15 minutes later, my phone rang again. And he says, "Yeah, it's the upper right-hand quadrant of the back." I said, "Perfect. I'm on my way." And sure enough, it ended up being the bad guy. And he even had, the knife, and it was in his pocket. And we ended up connecting him through DNA from the victim, from, transfer from the knife into his pocket. So had a politician had that, and that rarely happens in California. It happens a lot of other places around the country, but you do not usually see. And I think we can use this Kylie Rodney thing as a perfect example. The sheriff and the law enforcement were driving those press conferences. It wasn't driven by the city council or the mayors or anything like that. And that's just a rule that pretty much everybody knew. And that way, the flow of information is 100%, you know, clean and pure and hopefully right. And that way, if it does move, i.e., these investigations are fluid. They're constantly, I mean, even as we sit here tonight, that investigation is fluid.
Mhm.
And maybe an hour from now, there's going to be a press release that changes all the dynamics. And we had one just yesterday where it was reported that the two girls took an Uber. Well, now they're
Mhm.
saying, no, they didn't take an Uber. They actually got a ride from somebody. And that now opens up a whole world of possibilities, a whole world of possibilities. So, um, you know, I mean, when you were doing other stuff, I mean, just as, running the crime beat and stuff, with the other cities in San Diego, um, did you have a lot of politicians out front? I think it was very
No,
rare.
we didn't. We didn't. No, I think they do it once and then they realize, "Oops, that was a really bad idea." And, let the chain of command take place because that's the job of a police chief, or was it the movie
I
Jaws? The
love
mayor
I
let the
love
people
your
back in the water.
you guys are so funny. That is so
Proving our
funny.
point.
Uh,
Um, yeah, I mean, that's the job of a police chief, and the sheriff can keep their mayors updated on what they can release and what they can't release. But to
yeah,
show up at a crime scene or to get a press release out first and then end up having to walk it back is just unfortunate and a waste of time. Don't be a waste of time. Every resource is precious, even at these big agencies, let alone a small agency working under tough conditions round the clock trying to solve a crime as heinous as this one is.
yeah. And,
Yeah,
remember
we agree,
Baghdad
classy, yeah.
Bob on the first Gulf War? Remember everybody, they called him Baghdad Bob? And he was like, "Oh, the city's safe." And next thing you know it, the first infantry division was coming through the streets of, Baghdad. And that's what you don't want. Okay. And they,
Yeah.
and he got his
Well,
own name. Right. Go
yeah,
ahead.
he was paid to say that.
Right.
He was
Exactly.
paid a lot to say
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
Okay. So police need to hold back some details. Obviously, yes, that
Yes.
is 1,000% correct, class. We appreciate that concept.
Wait,
And
I see an interesting question. Isn't the mayor the boss of the police? So, yes, very good question. So, it's the mayor with the city council? Yes, that they are. They are the boss of the police, but that doesn't mean they should insert themselves in an investigation. The mayor and now of course we're talking about political stuff and probably things naturally of infighting and disagreements, etc. But if you've got a good working relationship between the mayor and your police chief, then your mayor probably won't show up at the crime scene. He'll wait for the call from the police chief to get him or her up to speed. So, but Lori, it's a good question. She's
yeah,
right. I mean, she is right. And just like a board of supervisors is the boss of a sheriff, even though the sheriff is an elected official. So,
yeah. This
yeah.
is, like Helen, your boss doesn't necessarily know your job. Good leaders are servant leaders. Uh, uh,
Yeah.
and you can tell that you can see agencies that have amazing leadership. And I'm gonna throw a plug here for Fruitland because that chief is amazing. And so this is the concept, right? Where everything it flows in the right place. Let's see here. Let's see here. Thank you for answering that question, Karen. Of course, did I
You're
not
welcome,
marry
Lori.
up,
Thank
you
you.
guys? She's the most beautiful girl you've ever seen. I mean, most beautiful woman. I mean, she's only
Thank you.
25, so she's in, she's great. And Buddy
I
just
see
jumped
I see
over.
Buddy's on the move. Yep, we're all
He's
good.
gone to your door, and Karen's in the other room and the other side. And Buddy just went to her door to find out where she's at here. Okay, so here's a question from Donna. When you
Okay.
start picking a cold case, I know at the beginning the file must be huge and so overwhelming. Can you talk about this, please?
Good question.
Yes, yes. Um, it can be overwhelming 90% of the time. I mean, I'll talk about a case we just worked in Texas. It was a double homicide, two victims. And that's the other thing, about miscommunication and flow of information. Okay. I am retired physically from, as a sworn officer from an agency. I am not retired from the Cold Case Foundation, who gets embedded with law enforcement agencies because of experience slash expertise or whatever. Okay. So I do work alongside law enforcement. Okay. I just don't put bracelets on people anymore. Okay. And so the flow of information is the same and it's critical. And that's why we're not going to talk about any of the stuff I'm involved in because I would never jeopardize anything like that. Um, but when you walk into an agency and you sit down with the case agents who, let's say, themselves got a case that's 15 years old, we take them through a process. And that process, you start realizing whether or not they have something, maybe a little bit more, or a lot. Okay. On lot. And by the way, she's not getting forgotten, Rose, but thank you for that point. That's an absolutely wonderful point. We need to ask her parents where she is. So I haven't forgotten her, and I will not forget her. Okay. That said, once you get an established, behavioral analysis aspect of a particular cold case, and then from there, you can now create windows to see through. What I mean by that is you assemble a whole group of people, professional people from every dynamic and every expertise available, every one of them. And you put them all in the same room. Today, modern technology allows you to do that through Zoom. And you talk about it and you try to figure it out. And everybody has to check their ego at the door. And that's one thing that's really interesting in today's dynamic terms of communication. What we're doing here is we're communicating. Our society has shifted from the ability to have a conversation to the ability of thinking in bits and bytes. And we don't even finish a conversation anymore. And that leaves room for this intellectual dance of ego and the superego and id. And they all compete with each other. And that then turns into, arguments, misinformation, blame, all kinds of things. And we see it all day long on social media, all day long. I mean, and then you get these intellectuals who, pretend they're doctors, yet, they're sitting in the basement eating their ramen. Yet on YouTube, they play a doctor or a social scientist or whatever they're going to play. Okay. But when you figure out, really who they are and what they're about, it's a persona. It's fake. And so they attack those that do the real thing. Oh, well, it's their reflection. It's nobody else's. And that's why I always believe in the principle, and my sweetheart knows me better than anybody. When she first met me, what was the highest compliment you ever gave me?
I said, talking to you was like talking to a girlfriend.
And I was like, "What?" You know, I mean,
He's a good talker,
if you
as
haven't
we
known
all
it,
know.
right? But I'm a good
Yeah,
listener.
you're a very good listener. You're an excellent listener, very compassionate listener, and just yeah, we talk for hours.
Yeah, and and it's but we've lost that art. Wouldn't you guys agree? Right? I mean, put your comments,
It's
later.
absolutely yes. I mean, we can see that within our families, our extended families, coworkers, you know, people that we were friends with 20, 30 years ago, long-time friends. I absolutely believe that. And
Yeah,
a lot of it's technology. A lot of it is technology. It is isolated people. We've become, I mean, a great example is, um, wishing somebody a happy birthday on Facebook. Well, a lot of us remember we used to send a birthday card in the mail. Nobody does that anymore, right? Now, I'm not saying it's a good or a bad. This is where we're at, and we all do it. And but it has made us so much more distant from each other. And I think each of us, we all know that because we have our own experiences where we can see it with people in our family and those close to us.
yeah, and what's interesting is even in the law enforcement arena, you're seeing this dependence on technology, and they're losing this ability of communication, and it needs to get back to this idea of, you know, even when, I mean, I think we all can remember the time when we were children where you felt confident enough to sitting next to this really old person and having them lean over and tell you their stories and, about life and all of this other stuff. And it was like, wow, and then, you would talk to your parents about it, and and today, we're seeing a lot of that ability being, I'm not saying lost, because I think this new generation now, like these poor kids, you know, um, today they're going back again to this ability of being friends, of talking. And Dylan, I think, is a perfect example. Our soon to be 19-year-old, he doesn't care about social media. He could care less. He doesn't like texting. He wants to sit across from you and have a conversation. Okay. And I agree. This is a really good point here, calling Pat. But I agree.
Oh,
2 years
yeah.
of COVID isolation. Yes. Yeah. And I
Absolutely.
don't think
It
the
hasn't helped.
social science research on this, I just pray that the good Lord, is able to recover that lost time for these kids, because I don't know. I'm no expert by any way, shape, or form in any of that, nor do I play one on YouTube. However, that in of itself is it's so dangerous in the future here, because as you guys saw, the next phase of all of this is the metaverse. If that comes into play, then these kids are going to be isolated even further, and it's going to really be um, pretty interesting. So
So that metaverse, people can hardly get their minds around what's happening now in the universe we're in right now. Metaverse is really asking people a lot to try to get our minds wrapped around that arena. And you're right, there's a lot that's gonna be coming, and, um, there is a way. I do hear of families who, people just put their phones away, or they don't let their kids have cell phones till they're much, much older, or, I think it starts with the families. Um, you have to make such a concerted effort to get your kids away from technology and do it in, small spurts. Not that all technology is bad, of course, that's not what we're saying. But we're talking about this sense of community, getting it back. And, technology isn't doing it. People have to go back to how they were raised and those habits and traditions. And I think you're going to see people gravitate to that much more because we know how isolating over reliance on technology is. We're seeing the results, and I think it's making people want to go the opposite way.
okay, so behind the scenes, we're going to show you some stuff real fast, and then my sweetheart gets the last word. But we want to thank
Uh,
you guys going into the holiday season here. I don't know. Can you see this? Because I can't see you right now because I had to use
oh,
a different window. Can you see, hun?
okay. Yes, I can see. Yeah. So
Okay.
let me just tell people what they're looking at. That is a picture of Chad Daybell's house in you guys will know. I already forgot what city it's in Idaho. This was when we were there last year covering it. You can see the picture to the right. That's actually Dylan filming Chris out there for the video that we made. And then um um this is a memorial for JJ and Ty Lee that's on the neighbor's fence line, but you can see looking into the property and that, people have put that there.
And by the way,
And then this
go ahead.
good.
Well, we want everybody to know how much we love and appreciate each and every one of you, our subscribers, our members, just being you, our mods. We can't do any of this, without your support. And you guys have been there. The photograph to the left, nobody knew about. This was behind the scenes. Again, I was going into Chula Vista Police Department with the family because we were working with them down there during this time. I'm usually pretty good about dodging the media, contrary to what people say. Okay, but it gives you a picture that we took just before we went in for another media meeting with Richard and Mary Chris and the family. We sure do love those guys. And then, of course, in the middle, the volunteers who are constantly there. They're still there. They're still searching for her. Go ahead, honey. I didn't mean to interrupt her. Please forgive
No,
me.
it's fine, and this was from a year ago, more than a year ago. This was on the search for Maya out with, Mary Chris and Richard. We were all blown away at the incredible love and compassion that the volunteers had, the dedication that they had. They would show up every weekend with, as you know, Mary, Chris, and Richard have not stopped, unbelievably not stopped looking for Maya, her remains. And it was such an organized mission of love, I'll call it. And, to be out there and just watch and, you know, observe and be able to share their story about what was continuing. We know what was going on with the news. Um, and so that one was pretty heart-wrenching.
And then, of course, we all love Frances, who searched for her sweet Brian for well over 2 years. This was some of the things we did with them, working with them, working with her specifically, and the law enforcement agency at the time. It was Sergeant Stamford at Jackson Police Department. Awesome guy. But this is, some of the things we were helping her understand. And none of this, by the way, none of that film was ever put out. We just kept it behind the scenes in case we needed to go back and review what Mom's statement was. But you see the upper left-hand corner, she's got that rake that she was out every single, I mean, honey, was she amazing or what?
Frances is another example of a heartbroken loved one. She is just, you all know, many of you know, if you've seen her on our channel here, just a mother who relentlessly searched for her baby, her baby. And, they found Brian and they found him in his car, as you guys know. The pain doesn't stop. And, but again, this like a mom on a mission, her love, we can all feel that. And I want to just add in here, I think it was Maui's question to us a little while ago. Maui, I'm sorry, we didn't answer it.
Yeah,
You
I can't
asked,
read
why
the
did,
question. Sorry.
no, it's okay. Maui had asked why we started this YouTube channel.
Oh,
And for us, I'm going to speak for Chris, we want to help. If this in some small way can help, if we can share their stories, if we can share these families who are going through so much, if we can bring their stories out, if we can help in some way, Dee Warner's story is another example.
notice
Um,
combat lawyer up there.
haha, there's
Bill,
Billy.
go ahead, finish
Um,
your thought.
no, we want to help. We've spent careers doing what we've done. We still want to help in different ways. Chris through this Cold Case Foundation. But this channel can make a difference, and it's all because of you guys. If we didn't have your support and your love behind us and your interest in these cases, we wouldn't be able to do any of this. So we are so grateful for each of you. And, we just ask if you can subscribe. That helps us.
That's it.
But just being here, just absolutely being here is perfect. That helps. You're in our TIR family. We all love when we get to come together. We all have the same cause. We're not always going to agree on everything. That's fine. We don't have to always agree on everything. It's like any other family, right? But your love, your support has helped make this channel what it is. And I just want to point out real quick what you're looking at. So this was at, I think it's a combination. These photos were from two separate visits to, one was from the rally, the Dee Warner rally. And we were blown away by the community support in Tecumseh and Tipton, that whole area of Michigan. Hi, Linda. And we just the signs, I don't know if you guys can read them. These are small pictures, but the love and the support and the ire that people brought because they demanded justice be done, meaning with the local Lenawee County Sheriff's Department. It wasn't good enough to do nothing. So that case is now with the Michigan State Police, as you all know. We'll see more pressure is needed for sure. I mean, has Dee Warner been Has her family gotten justice? I would say no, not yet. Not yet. Could it come? Yes. Should it come very soon? Absolutely. And so, we're here cheering
Don't
everybody on and to do the right thing. Go ahead.
don't underestimate that combat lawyer, everybody. Billy Little is a force to be reckoned with, and it's moving in the right direction. In the right direction.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl. You're so sweet.
You're
Well, we
okay,
couldn't do any of this
sweetheart.
without you guys.
You are the most important guest here, and then Buddy, and then I'll fall into third position. But you get the last word, and so I'm going to get out of the picture here, and I'm going to give you the last word. And then is everybody ready to go to Hawaii when Karen is done? So, all right, sweetie, I love you. Good job. Come on the show much
Love you
more
too,
often,
baby.
please. Okay, here you go.
It's been fun. We just want to say from our family to yours, thank you, thank you. You guys help make this channel what it is. We're grateful for you and your support. If you like this video, click the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next one.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away. Yeah, we're going away. You and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.